Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Michael Music. I wanted to say hello to everyone watching. I am currently reading Think and Grow Rich. We're reading The Sixth Sense, and yeah, today's going to be a great episode. I was actually thinking last night whether or not I found the secret in Think and Grow Rich, and I'll explain what I truly believe the secret is to my understanding after I read the end of The Sixth Sense. So if you're curious about, if you read Think and Grow Rich ever, or if you heard there's a secret in this book to unlock, and you want to like boil down into a sentence and like explicitly stay around to the end, I may share it with you. And yeah, I'm gonna get right into it because I do have somewhere to be at 10:30. Um, so that's that. This is episode 22 of Think and Grow Rich. We are on chapter 14, The Sixth Sense, page 318. And we're going to continue on from yesterday or Saturday's reading. Okay. So going back to page 317, I'm going to repeat what we read. It said, Napoleon Hill says, I was unable to tell the following morning whether I had dreamed this or had actually been awake. And I have never since found out which it was. But I do know that the dream, if it were a dream, was so vivid in my mind the next day that I resumed my meetings the following night. At our next meeting, the members of my cabinet all filed into the room together and stood at their accustomed places at the council table, where Lincoln raised a glass and said, Gentlemen, let us drink to toast a friend who has returned to the fold. After that, I began to add new members to my cabinet until now it consists of more than 50, among them Christ, St. Paul, Galileo, Copernicus, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Homer, Voltaire, Bruno, Spinoza, Drummond, Kant, Schopenhauer, Newton, Confucius, Albert Hubbard, Brand, Ingersoll, Wilson, and William James. This is the first time that I have had the courage to mention this. Heretofore, I have remained quiet on the subject because I knew from my own attitude in connection with such matters that I would be misunderstood if I described my unusual experience. I have emboldened now to reduce my experience to the printed page because I am now less concerned about what they say than I was in the years that passed. One of the blessings of maturity is that it sometimes brings one greater courage to be truthful, regardless of what those who do not understand may think or say. Lest I be misunderstood, I wish here to state most empathetically that I still regard my cabinet meetings as being purely imaginary, but I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be purely fictional and that the meetings existent only in my own imagination, they have led me to glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. So what's he saying there? Napoleon Hill is mentioning that yes, his invisible counselors were all in his imagination, but he admits that it has been a key to helping him really like all those things is really rekindle his adventure and creative endeavor and provide honest thoughts. So it has definitely served him, even though we are talking about the invisible counselors, and this is something completely made up in one's mind. So moving along, somewhere in the cell structure of the brain is located an organ which receives vibration of thought, ordinarily called hunches. So far, science has not discovered where this organ of the sixth sense is located, but this is not important. The fact remains that human beings do receive accurate knowledge through sources other than the physical senses. Such knowledge is generally received when the mind is under the influence of extraordinary stimulation. Okay, I want to pause on that word, extraordinary stimulation. What is extraordinary stimulation? And hey, Rob, I'm glad that you're on here. What is extraordinary stimulation? Has this word popped up in previous chapters? Anything about stimuli, right? Remember, um, there was multiple mentions. I haven't having trouble placing on where it was exactly in the book, but there was multiple situations that Napoleon Hill described different sources of stimuli for the mind. I remember there was, for example, like music, and he had a list of 7 of the major attributes to stimuli. And so he's saying that such knowledge through your sixth sense is generally received when the mind is under the influence of extraordinary stimulation. So, taking this a step back, I just want to mention, I think the whole premise of the 13 principles of Think and Grow Rich is to provide certain stimuli to your mind so that you actually access these inner powers that you have with your mind's control. And one thing about these principles, and there's little stimuli here and there that are mentioned throughout each chapter, but the thing about it is it's this philosophy is essentially developing you to a state of mind, the money consciousness, as Napoleon Hill says. and and that's where he's getting at with the sixth sense, that you receive all this crazy knowledge through your sixth sense when your mind is in this level of vibration, this state of mind through the extraordinary stimuli. So that's what I think about when I read that word. Furthermore, any emergency which arouses the emotions and causes the heart to beat more rapidly than normal may and generally does bring the sixth sense into action. So keep in mind, anytime, I don't know, have you ever been in a situation where your heart is just something's going on, where your heart rate starts to speed up? Remember, that's your subconscious mind is essentially controlling the heart. So have you ever been in a situation where your heart rate has speed up or slowed down, and there's something going on, and like you're not consciously controlling these organs in your body, but something's going on? And what Napoleon Hill is saying, that any emergency which arouses the emotions, so the emotions are in the subconscious mind, and causes the heart to beat more rapidly than more normal, may and generally does bring the sixth sense into action. So with that information, just keep an eye out if a situation like that does pop up, and I guess ask yourself, if your sixth sense, if some part of you is brought into the playing field, so to speak. So anyone who has experienced a near accident while driving knows that on such occasions the sixth sense is often comes to one's rescue and aids by split seconds in avoiding the accident. And Rob says, and you have to be purposeful for it to work. Don't wait. Be aware of it. Be aware of what you are consuming. For example, music, media, and books. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So what's your intention? What is my intention for when I do bring out my sixth sense? So yeah, an emergency can happen, but do I like, what is the reason I do want my sixth sense, right? And I would say that the reason is to attract more money. That's what this whole philosophy is about, is mainly not just the money, I guess, like becoming truly rich, right? Rich, and that can mean terms other than money as well. That I know we mentioned money consciousness, but riches are way bigger than just money itself. Um Okay, I'm going to keep reading. So Napoleon Hill says, these facts are mentioned preliminary to a statement of fact which I shall now make, namely, that during my meetings with the invisible counselors, I find my mind most receptive to ideas, thoughts, and knowledge which reach me through the sixth sense. I can truthfully say that I owe entirely to my invisible counselors full credit for such ideas, facts, or knowledge as I received through inspiration. On scores of occasions, when I have faced emergencies, some of them so grave that my life was in jeopardy, I have been miraculously guided past these difficulties through the influence of my invisible counselors. My original purpose in conducting council meetings with imaginary beings was solely that of impressing my own subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion with certain characteristics which I desired to acquire. However, in more recent years, my experimentation has taken on an entirely different trend. And also, if you guys are reading right now, I'm on page 320 if you do want to keep up. Napoleon Hill says now, I now go to my imaginary counselors with every difficult problem which confronts me and my clients. The results are astonishing, although I do not depend entirely on this form of counsel. You, of course, have recognized that this chapter covers a subject with which a majority of people are not familiar. The sixth sense is a subject that will be of great interest and benefit to the person whose aim is to accumulate vast wealth, but it need not claim the attention of those whose desires are more modest. Henry Ford undoubtedly understands and makes practical use of the sixth sense. His vast business and financial operations make it necessary for him to understand and use this principle. The late Thomas A. Edison understood and used the sixth sense in connection with the development of inventions, especially those involving basic patents, in connection with which he had no human experience and no accumulated knowledge to guide him, as was the case while he was working on the talking machine and the moving picture. Nearly all great leaders, such as Napoleon, Bismarck, Joan of Arc, Christ, Buddha, Confucius, and Muhammad, understood and probably made use of the sixth sense almost continuously. Almost continuously. So, can you use your sixth sense just persistently, right? Like, can it always be into play, or does it need to come out during certain periods of time? The major portion of their greatness consisted of their knowledge of this principle. The sixth sense is not something that one can take off and put on at will. Okay, so that answers that question. Ability to use this great power comes slowly through application of the other principles outlined in this book. Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you, Rob. Thank you for listening to me right now. But additionally, I want to say ability to use this great power of your sixth sense comes slowly through application of the other principles outlined in this book. So, can you access your sixth sense without understanding all 12 principles? Possibly. However, I would argue that I don't think you can use it to the extent that you can possibly use this power until you really take the time to master all other 12 principles like desire, faith, autosuggestion, imagination. The list goes on. Specialized knowledge, organized planning, persistence, decision, and the brain and the subconscious mind. I may be missing one, but you get the point. All those really do link together, and I realize as I do read this out loud, it kind of brought this whole philosophy into like one like thought block almost for me. And it is really interesting just now, like now I'm reading out the sixth sense. Like this is like this at first was a lot of hoorah BS, but now it is kind of coming together for me. Okay. Seldom does any individual come into workable knowledge of the sixth sense before the age of 40. That's interesting. More often, the knowledge is not available until one is well past 50, and this for the reason that the spiritual forces with which the sixth sense is so closely related do not mature and become usable except through years of meditation, self-examination, and serious thought. No matter who you are or what you have been, your purpose, no matter who you are or what may have been your purpose in reading this book, you can profit by it without understanding the principle described in this chapter. This is especially true if your major purpose is that of accumulation of money or other material things. The chapter on the sixth sense was included because the book is designed for the purpose of presenting a complete philosophy by which individuals may unerringly guide themselves in attaining whatever they ask of life. So why did Napoleon Hill include this chapter on the sixth sense? Because he wanted to give a complete philosophy. And it's interesting how he mentions he wanted to present a complete philosophy by which individuals may unerringly guide themselves in attaining whatever they ask of life. So let me ask you, is that the secret right there? Maybe it's not to now develop a money consciousness, but to attain anything that you ask for out of life. And it's interesting to think that money is the medium to really get whatever you want. So when they say earning money is a bad thing, is it really though? Because you need a medium to get whatever it is that you want out of life. And so that could be one of the great secrets of this book, and why what this whole philosophy can do for a person. The starting point of all achievement is desire. The finishing point is that brand of knowledge which leads to understanding of self, understanding of others, understanding of the laws of nature, recognition, and understanding of happiness. This sort of understanding comes in its fullness only through familiarity with and use of the principle of the sixth sense. Hence, that principle had to be included as a part of this philosophy for the benefit of those who demand more than money. Whew. Having read the chapter, you must have observed that while reading it, you were lifted to a high level of mental stimulation. There's that word, the extraordinary stimulation again. Splendid. Come back to this again a month from now, read it once more, and observe that your mind will soar to a still higher level of stimulation. Repeat this experience from time to time, given no concern as to how much or how little you learn at the time, and eventually you will find yourself in possession of a power that will enable you to throw off discouragement, master fear, overcome procrastination, and draw freely upon your imagination. Okay, I'm going to pause right here, and I just got to get this off my chest. I think the secret to Think and Grow Rich, let's just boil this whole book into one sentence. The secret to Think and Grow Rich is to develop a certain state of mind. And you notice that Napoleon Hill mentions throughout the book multiple times this idea of developing a money consciousness. And I think that's very important. And I also do think it goes deeper than that in terms of accumulating whatever it is you want. So you do need that money consciousness, I think, to accumulate whatever it is you want. But essentially, he keeps repeating this idea of mental stimulation. It's all stimuli for this, like the subconscious mind, stimuli from here, the sixth sense, stimuli, stimuli, stimuli. And it's interesting that it's like these 13 principles all come together as one to stimulate your mind to what? What is the whole point of stimulation, right? Like, why do people do drugs? To stimulate their mind so that they can change their state. However, people are smoking pot to get into this chilled back, relaxed state. We're reading now, Think and Grow Rich, to get into this state of mind that puts out all the fear, puts out all the discouragement and all the doubt. And it's like I've heard it so many times, but it's like the state of mind is the secret. The Think and Grow Rich state of mind is what I believe from reading this right now to be the secret to this book. And I think that you do have to incorporate all these principles. Like these are principles, not just chapters that you have to incorporate to develop the state of money consciousness so that you can have whatever it is that you want. Okay. That's what I think the secret is, and it could change over time as I read through it. But right now, I do gotta say, I do think that is it. Okay, Napoleon Hill now says, we're on page 322. Then you will have felt the touch of that unknown something which has been the moving spirit of every truly great thinker, leader, artist, musician, writer, statesman. Then you will be in a position to transmute your desires into their physical or financial counterpart as easily as you may lie down and quit at the first sign of opposition. So Rob says he got a download. Very cool, Rob. Very cool. Yeah. So we are next up on Faith versus Fear. Previous chapters have described how to develop faith through autosuggestion, desire, and the subconscious. The next chapter presents detailed instructions for the mastery of fear. Here will be found a full description of the 6 fears, which are the cause of all discouragement, timidity, procrastination, indifference, indecision, and the lack of ambition, self-reliance, initiative, self-control, and enthusiasm. Search yourself carefully as you study these 6 enemies. You notice how he says enemies. Who is the enemy? And in this other great book, Outwitting the Devil, he says that the enemy is fear and doubt. So search yourself carefully as you study these 6 enemies, as they may exist only in your subconscious mind, where their presence will be hard to detect. Remember, too, as you analyze the 6 ghosts of fear, that they are nothing but ghosts, because they exist only in one's mind. So everything that you fear, Napoleon Hill is saying, isn't actually real. It's a ghost. And that's interesting. That goes back to the idea of what is everything, right? And then in the previous chapter, we broke it down into 2 things. Everything is either energy or matter, right? So what is a fear, right? It's fair to say that if it exists in your mind, it's not quite physical, it's not matter, so it's an energy. So understand that linkage on why he does describe it as a ghost, because a fear is just technically a negative energy and it only exists in your mind. So remember also that ghosts, which are creations of uncontrolled imagination. What is that? Creations of uncontrolled imagination have caused most of the damage people have done to their own minds. Therefore, ghosts can be as dangerous as if they lived and walked on the earth in physical bodies. Okay, I don't have an answer for this, but I do want to ask you guys, what does that mean? Creations of uncontrolled imagination. What does controlled imagination look like? And why would you want to really control your imagination, right? Like, would it be fair to say that it would be wise to definitely control your imagination so that you could block out all these ghosts of fear? And keep in mind that even though these are ghosts of fear, they can be just as dangerous as if they lived and walked on the earth in physical bodies. Okay, final paragraph. The ghost of the fear of poverty, which seized the minds of millions of people in 1929, was so real that it caused the worst business depression this country has ever known. Moreover, this particular ghost still frightens some of us out of our wits. And that is the end of the chapter on the sixth sense. So next chapter is chapter 15, how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. I do want to now leave it up to you guys. What'd you learn? What'd you like from that end of chapter 14 on the sixth sense? I thought that was some really powerful stuff. And I will say that chapter hit me differently than it ever has before. So yeah, stop the insanity. Don't let the devil bring negative thoughts. Yeah, keep in mind, Remember, in Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill mentions that a lot of the negative thoughts that you have, you got to realize aren't actually your thoughts. So what happens is when you're drifting and you don't have a definite purpose that you're searching for, there's a void. There's a void in your mind, and it's going to be hard for me to explain it without visuals, but there's a void in your mind, and that's where the negative portion of the atom or the devil kind of sips into your mind. And he is so sneaky and so good at his job that he plants these thoughts, and it turns out they're his thoughts, not yours, but they're so subtle that you think that they're your thoughts that you're having. So yeah, this is going to be important, especially in terms of the next upcoming chapters on outwitting the six ghosts of fear, just identifying them and then getting rid of them. Yeah, this is definitely some deep stuff. So what did I learn? What did I like from all this? I learned, okay, I did say in the beginning of this video, I wanted to tell the secret. I felt like I said it. What I learned is that essentially you can think on a vibration, on a level or a frequency that truly blocks out all the fears. And I will admit, I do go back to obviously the lower frequencies at time. But what I'm trying to say is those are different states of mind that I'm at. And what I'm trying to get at is this book, these principles that we just learned. And if you do want to revisit any other principles, just go to my YouTube channel. It's Michael Music. You can just rewatch any of the videos. I do a bunch of readings on chapters like this. What would I say? I was going to say that the state of mind, like right now, I will admit, like this chapter definitely elevated me to a higher state of mind of thinking. And it's cool because if I can persistently control my imagination and stay at this level, then I could admit that I may have developed that state of mind, that think and grow rich state of mind that is essentially the secret. So even though I'm saying the secret is this, it's a state of mind. It's like, but did I master all these principles so that I can consistently control my imagination and stay at this level? So Rob, pick your advisors carefully and surround yourself with people that love, support, and are like-minded with your dreams. Yeah, going back to the chapter on the mastermind, notice how throughout the book, I noticed this time reading it that the mastermind principle is brought up in multiple chapters. In the chapter of persistence, there was four key parts to it, and the third part, I believe, was to form a mastermind group and really keep that as your inner circle with who you share your thoughts with. And it's definitely really important that we're not sharing all these crazy ideas with everyone in the world, because most people will put these ideas down because they just don't understand. So I have to be personally careful of who I tell things to now and who I share my opinions with, or like say what I'm gonna do with. And so what I have started doing was only sharing it with my mastermind. I don't even tell all my friends all these things because they're just gonna put it down and say that's crazy talk. So that's a great point right there. Another thought about the mastermind. Keep in mind that we talked about the invisible counselors, right? So we talked about the mastermind not only with real people, like say on Zoom, and like it's like a real mastermind group, but we're also talking about the invisible counselors. And this could be anyone that you look up to. You can have Jesus Christ as part of your invisible counselors, and that's pretty sick. Like, so I brought this up. I had a mentor, and his name was Sean G. Murphy, and I brought this up to him, and he told me that when it comes to the invisible counselors, a great suggestion that to do would be to interview them. So, for example, like write down a list of who you want in your invisible counselors, and then interview them as if it's a real interview. And you got to use your imagination for this, but think like, what purpose will you serve me in being part of my invisible mastermind? So just some things to keep in mind, because one thing that might happen is you might read this chapter and be like, oh, invisible counselors, boom, gonna start that. Jesus, you're a part of it. Martin Luther King Jr., you're a part of it, like all these people, and then you don't really come back to it. But I noticed that if you interview people to let them in part of your invisible counselor mastermind, then it's like, okay, like you kind of passed the first test, or that first wall that I put up so that you can be a part of it. And it makes you kind of go back to the counselors a little bit more. Um, okay, cool. Well, hey, I wanted to say thank you guys for watching. Those were just some of my thoughts on this chapter, and this is some good stuff, I will say. So, with that being said, I will see you guys Facebook until we meet again in time and space. And YouTube, it's been a pleasure. Peace out for now. See you guys at the next event.